Why, hello! I'm back to talk to you guys about another book. This time, The Black Leviathan by Bernd Perplies? Perplies? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Perplies. He's a German author, and I don't know what else he writes. I think he's written some like Star Trek books and some stuff like that. I don't know. I found this book in a used bookstore, and I picked it up because it seemed interesting. The the elevator pitch of the book is Moby Dick, but dragons, right? And that's a pretty arresting elevator pitch, right? Now, partly because Moby Dick is a great, one of the great stories, the great American novel. It's something that everybody kind of knows, tales of madness and revenge and obsession. And it appeals to me because Moby Dick implies ships, and I think everyone here should know that I'm obsessed with ships. And yeah, I mean, that's just a strong pitch for a book. Moby Dick, but dragons. So, now what we have here is, I think really it's a good book. We're just gonna start off there. It's a good book. It follows a lad who lives in this fantasy world where instead of whaling, there are flying ships that go and hunt dragons for meat and scales and bone and all kinds of things like that in a grand, in a great cloud sea. Right, there's this fog, and you ride up in the fog, and there's stones that great monoliths, or not monoliths, but great chunks of stone rise up out of the from the ground and burst through, and those are your islands and your reefs essentially. And they're lifted by the same crystals. They're magic crystals that lift the ships that they use to sail through this cloud ocean, basically. So we have a boy who has to run away from home. He was an apprentice crystal chipper, and for various reasons he has to flee his home city. And the best way to do that is get on a ship. And he gets on this ship, and he doesn't really know much about it. Doesn't really know much about dragon hunting in general, or they're dragon jagers, because we translate some things from German, but apparently not all the things. But Jager is Jaeger. It's a cool word anyway. It's a cool word in English. In German, it's just a word. But back to the point. He gets on the ship, doesn't realize that he's signing on with an insane captain, a great captain at hunting dragons, but he's also insane and driven by obsession, obsessed with the dragon that, instead of taking his leg, obsessed with the dragon who killed his beloved. So that's the gist of the setup of the novel. It takes quite a while to actually get on that ship, though. The first bit of this book does a reasonable amount of world building, right? Just smooth setting. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I haven't read Moby Dick. I know the general gist of the narrative. I haven't read it. I really should, given that I love ships, but I haven't read it yet. There's a lot of like setting up of how the ships work, and a little bit of history of how people came to be hunting dragons on ships. Which, sounds patently ridiculous. And it is kind of patently ridiculous, even in the world. But people do it because it's very profitable. That kind of stuff. But one thing I'm going to say about this book is that, it's pretty short. It's like 318 pages, I think. Somewhere right in that zone. That's a pretty speedy book for a fantasy with a lot of world building. We have, maybe 4 or 5 fantasy races. We have humans. We have a bird people that's like Vogel folk or something like that. We have a dog people. We have a lizard people. We have things that are like elves. They each have their own culture. It's one of those deals where it seems like each culture is very well thought through, but we don't really spend much time with any of it. They each have their own gods, their own belief systems. They have different notions of magics. That's a lot to have in a 318-page book. There's history, there's lore, there's world building, all of these things. But I want to make a comparison. So whenever did the video here on The Swordbearer by Glenn Cook, I also noted that that was a short book, and it was a short book with a lot of world building. I think that was much more effective at trying to have a rich world while telling me very little about it. In that book, in The Swordbearer, when you read, these passing mentions and these light outlines of things, it engages my imagination. It makes me go, oh, I see how maybe it could fit like this, or maybe it could fit like that. I think this is calling to this kind of idea, or maybe that kind of idea. And I felt very engaged by that. In this case, I craved more detail. I was given an outline that felt like there was more there that I wasn't being told, but it felt like I wasn't given enough for my imagination to run farther. I felt like I don't want to say held back, but I didn't have enough pieces to really make a go of it. That also ties into the second thing I want to talk about in this book. The characters are, they're not amazing, but they're pretty good. We have different characterizations. Several of them are reasonably well-rounded. There's development as we learn more about people and as they learn more about themselves, to a point. Again, pretty tight here. And this isn't a book that makes me think that it's, it's not truly stellar, but it's a good book, right? So we have the kind of development that we expect and hope for in a book, right? Like, it's why we read these things. However, there's a number of things where, you see it set up. It's set up for you. It happens, and we keep moving. There's not, how do I want to say this? There are times in this book that we would have done better to linger. That's not something that you often hear in a book. Normally it's, we lingered too long and this should have been edited down. In this case, I would say that we could have benefited from lingering on some moments. We could have lingered more on loss and seen because there's multiple types of loss in this book, and if we had lingered in a couple places, we could have gotten some very interesting character work of contrast of the different kinds of loss and where different types of loss and different types of people handling the loss, or the same person handling loss in different ways because they've changed, or the dread of future loss, right? Like all of these things were set up in that book and not done. We could have lingered more in the the state of bloodlust and going down a wrong path, or the state of what madness, right? Like we could have teased out some of these things a little longer than we were, or a little more effectively if they had had a longer run, pulled from earlier in the book and pulled through forwards. And this is what I think would make this a great book. These threads are there, and they just aren't teased out. We have a question, and then we work on it, and we get an answer. And that's just not as satisfying for the arc of the book itself. And again, there's enough layers here to really have been something interesting, and you could have had seen how they played with each other, multiple themes, but it just doesn't quite do it, which is unfortunate because I really liked some of this otherwise. I do want to shout out a couple things that I really liked about this book and its world building. I thought that the world as it was set up was fascinating. I mean, it's not like I thought that whenever I say I wanted to know more, it's not like I didn't know enough for the story to work. It was a fascinating world that was set up that it made me crave more. Like, if this was the beginning of a series, or there were many tales set in this world, which as far as I know, there aren't, that would have been, that would have been an amazing hook, right? But I don't think that there are more stories set in this world, unfortunately. Similarly, if there was more time spent teasing out some of the mysteries that were set up, there were several mystical things that happened throughout the course of the book, to be appropriately vague. But we don't really spend, there's the mystical thing and there's the payoff, but a mystical thing should stay esoteric. That's true. But I need enough detail. I need enough structure. I need enough backing to really make it satisfying. A great example of that is in The Lord of the Rings. The nature of the fight between Gandalf and the Balrog is, I mean, we don't have a lot to work with. It's 2 or 3 paragraphs that are poetic in a sense, but there's something about that scene, that what happens there, that just captivates the imagination. Them falling to the earth, you knowing that they are both something beyond the world that you're seeing, down to the center of down to the pits of the earth, where there are things that gnaw at the roots of the world, and the battle goes to the peak of the mountain, and we're not getting the whole picture. In the case of Tolkien, Tolkien's work was very, connected to his faith, and so there's something there that echoes some of the, the battles that are described, in something like, the Bible, and in religious traditions in general. There, you hear enough to be fascinated, to get a sense of the importance, but then you never are given enough details to truly understand. And that can be very satisfying. Here, we were so close. We're like 5% of details short for me to feel satisfied. Instead, I'm just like, I don't get it. There's something I'm missing. It was only 318 pages. It's not like I forgot about it because I read it at the beginning of the book, 6 months ago, right? Like this isn't that challenging. Yeah. So I mean that is really my review. This is a good book that is frustratingly close to being a great book. I do want to see. I gotta look up this guy, see what more has been translated of his works, see what more I might be interested in, because I'm really not that interested in reading Star Trek books, and we'll just have to go from there. Anyway, that's all I have for right now. I don't know what I'm doing next on this channel. So rarely do I know. I'm thinking maybe demo of stuff, or I don't know. Maybe something short form. Who knows? I don't know. We'll come to that bridge when we come to it. I'll catch you guys later. Like this video and leave some comments if you found it interesting or usable. If this helped you learn about a book that you might be interested in, and subscribe to see my sorry ass just ramble at the screen, ramble at you, sometimes with a game there and sometimes not. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.